Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of pop culture, social media, sports, everything really, TV, film. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, it goes PD Beats. My guest is in a lot of TV shows. You might recognize her from Siren on Freeform. She's in The Magicians, Supernatural, Colony, so many shows. Hannah Levien is with us. Hannah, welcome to Popternative.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So we mentioned it before we started. You are from Australia.
I am from Down Under.
And now currently in some fantastic shows, going to the conventions. Talk about when it kind of all started. When did you kind of decide that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, very first experience acting was randomly at a Sunday school I was attending to learn how to speak German when I was 5 years old, which is really weird because I'm not German. Neither is my family, but they thought to culture me, they'd put me in German classes. So I went along and did it like a good 5-year-old child, and then got cast in the Christmas play as Mary, where I had to learn all the dialogue in German, which I was terrible at because I was 5 years old. So I was essentially fired from that role and then made an angel that didn't speak. Oh. That was my first role in the dramatic world. But obviously something about it stuck because I kept doing drama classes through primary school with friends, and eventually at the age of about 10 or 11, I just became kind of obsessed. I would watch movies and be so drawn in and want to be able to do that. Actually, Dead Poet Society is one of the first films I watched that I went, I want to act. This is what I'm doing with my life. And I really never looked back. I went to drama school out of high school and shot a film in Australia called The Horseman, which was my first independent film in Australia that did really well. It's a great film if you haven't seen it. And then got moved out to LA for some projects, and then it just all kind of kept flowing from there.
No, absolutely. I'll get into the TV shows that you were on because there's a lot, and I'm sure we could talk about them forever. But you mentioned something interesting that I wanted to kind of point out. You mentioned that you kind of wanted, like a lot of film was that influenced you. But what I find interesting is now there's like people that are still saying, oh, I want to be a movie star when I grow up. But because TV has come such a long way, you have people literally saying, like, I want to grow up to be a TV star. Do you agree that TV is kind of competing head to head now with film?
Well, I think there's a lot of parts to this conversation. And films become so much more expensive and so much more challenging for the film industry these days because of the fact that people can watch stuff at home. So what is actually going to get people to go to the cinema and to watch one film when they can watch an entire season of a show? So there's a whole discussion about what kind of films get people in and what will make someone pay that money for a ticket. And a lot of people, well, from especially being Australian, I feel like our industry, our films are very much about human stories. We don't have a lot of the superhero stuff, or we don't have the budgets really to make those kind of films. So I think the Australian actors I know, we grew up doing a lot of theater as well. So work for us is usually about telling a story, connecting to an audience. And if the films being made more so these days aren't so much about that, if they're more about all the other things that, explosions and adventures and all this kind of stuff, which is super fun. Yeah. But it may not be what inspires a lot of us to become actors in the first place. So I think that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I like working in television. I also really am still passionate about film, and I actually am a filmmaker myself, but they may never be the films that are going to make millions and millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think everyone would say that the writing in TV right now there's just some fantastic stuff being made. Wow. So yeah, it's actually, I feel very, very blessed to be working in television right now.
That was a deep, thorough answer. Thank you. No, that's really good. I'm thinking about everything you just said. I'm like, wow, that was That's good. No, that's really
I'm gonna sound like a film nerd, but I'm really passionate about
Oh no,
the
for
entertainment
sure.
industry.
Hey, I always say if you don't like it's kind of like a motto. And every once in a while, like I'll tweet it out, and then it gets a lot of retweets, and then like I'll wait 4 or 5 months, and I'll be like, hey, I know what will get me some retweets, and I retweet it. If you like, you have to do it with passion, or you don't do it at all. That's what I always say.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And the people I know in this industry, they're very passionate about it. Not just about the work they do, but about the industry.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so TV shows. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's talk about let's hit them
Let's break it down.
let's hit them all down like bowling pins. First pin, Siren on Freeform. Siren.
Yes. So you've been watching it?
A little bit. I started a little bit of Siren. For people that don't know about Siren, I mean I'll just say mermaids.
That's all you need to know.
Exactly. So talk a little bit about that show and more about your role. Because I'm sure, like it's people are talking about the show a lot on my social media, so it's awesome that you're in it and we're able to talk about it.
Yeah, Siren, it's a super cool show. It's on Freeform. We are on Thursday nights at 8 p.m., 7 Central. So definitely you should be watching. It is set in a seaside town, Pacific Northwest, where there's a history of mermaids coming to land. And we don't know if it's just a legend or what it is until the show begins and we start to realize that it is a real thing. There really are mermaids. They're coming to shore. But they aren't the pleasant singing mermaids that we have come to know on television.
They're not.
They're dangerous predators. And the show addresses whether humans and these mermaids can actually coexist together peacefully, or is it always going to be a war, essentially.
It's a really cool concept. It was one of those things too where like I'm a big TV guy, right? So I always see like synopsis for upcoming shows, and when I read that synopsis, it got me all excited because the concept's kind of cool. You know what I mean? I mean, mermaids have been kind of around the concept, the Little Mermaid, Disney, and like concept, but kind of putting like a little bit of like a dark spin to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's like the visual design of the mermaids is very dark and a bit mechanical in a way. Like we're watching these mermaids take shape when they hit the water and what actually happens where their bones form and stuff, like the tail forms. And it's really cool what they've done with it. They've definitely taken the show in a really interesting direction. And it also has a bit of an environmental aspect to it as well, because we learn that the mermaids are coming to shore because their food source is being depleted because of the rising temperature in the seas. So there's a socially conscious message behind it as well. So you definitely want to watch.
What about your character?
So I played Janine. She is a super fun character. Definitely provides a bit of comedic relief. She is the bartender in the town, and I also am dating one of the central characters called Calvin, played by Curtis Lum, and he's a fisherman. So basically, Janine kind of gets up to no good. She has her finger on the pulse a little bit about what's going on. And so far, we've seen me a few times just kind of popping in and out. And then the last few episodes, I'm in it a bit more and sort of just we're finding out a bit more about who I am and what I know and all this kind of stuff. So it's been a really fun role.
Very cool. All right, Siren, cross it off. Magicians, The Magicians.
So I'm just going to adjust my camera. Yes. Are you familiar with the show?
Oh, yes. I'm familiar with all the shows that we're going to talk about. I'm familiar. I'm a TV guy. That's what I do. So The Magicians, for people that don't know, because I don't like kind of assuming that everyone knows all the shows like I do or like you do, right? So I like giving, can you like tell us a little bit of like synopsis of The Magicians for people that haven't checked it out?
Yes. I can definitely do that. There is a lot to the show at this point. It's
I know.
The end of the 3rd season, beginning of the 4th season. That's going to be filmed this year. So right now there's a lot of detail in the story. So I don't want to offend any Magicians fans by making this very simplified. But essentially, The Magicians is based on a really awesome book series by Lev Grossman. Great dude. Should check him out. And it is essentially about a character called Quentin Coldwater, sort of withdrawn. Reminds me a bit of the character in Catcher in the Rye, if anyone's read that. And he basically ends up joining this magical college called Breakbills, where he is going to learn how to be a magician. And it's kind of like that Hogwarts thing. It's very hard to be selected for this kind of program. And basically he goes to this magical school that's what people describe as Harry Potter for adults, but that's not necessarily true. But, you know, there's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it is a departure from Hogwarts.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's still this amazing magical school where there's all this crazy stuff that happens. He meets a whole bunch of other magicians there. I play one of those magicians that was formerly at Breakbills. I'm a time traveler. I have these super sweet knuckle tattoos on my hands that give me magical powers. So that's always fun. And the show basically follows the adventures of these characters, the situations they get into. In the latest season, magic had disappeared. There were 7 keys that the characters had to find in order to bring magic back. And there's magical worlds. There's the underworld. There's New York City as well. So it's really cool. It's got a super badass team of writers behind it with Sarah Gamble and John McNamara as the creators. Very witty. Lots of black humor, dark humor in there. Like, definitely quite a unique show.
Very cool. And let's do like a 2-for-1. And there's so many shows that I might be missing, but Colony, Supernatural, let's talk about them. You're in both those shows. People know it's like Supernatural. People also know Colony because it's on Netflix. And a lot of my friends are starting it. I have to give a shout out to my friend Ryan Spooner, who plays for the New York Rangers, who is watching it right now, and he loves that show.
Yay!
So
Thank you for watching. Colony is super cool. I'm in the 3rd season of Colony. I'm in the episode coming up this week, Wednesday night, 10 p.m., 9 Central on USA. Really, really cool show, post-apocalyptic, end of the world. This the centers on a family called the Bowmans with Josh Holloway and Sarah Wayne Callies, who are both brilliant in it. And
Sawyer from Lost.
Yes, Sawyer from Lost. Need we say more?
We have to say that though. Like that's all. I feel like that's all you have to say, right? Like Lost has such a like quote unquote cult following.
Such a big following.
And it's just like all you have to say is Sawyer from Lost. And
Sawyer from Lost. And that'll get every woman interested for sure. But they're both fantastic in it. And it's, post-apocalyptic, end of the world. And I had a great time on that show. It was my 2nd time working with the executive producer, Tim Southam, who's fantastic. And everyone in the cast is raving about this 3rd season, just saying they think it's going to be the best so far. And and
you've had the chance to be on, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest shows in terms of fan following, Supernatural.
I consider myself very fortunate.
It's huge. Like you can't even. It's a beast. It's up there. It's like, wasn't there like a Supernatural convention?
Oh, there's multiple.
That's crazy.
Multiple Supernatural conventions. But the incredible thing about Supernatural is it has been going for, I think, 12 years now.
Yeah.
12, 13 years, maybe more.
It's a freak of nature. It is, and it's growing, I feel like.
Maybe. I actually was a huge fan when it started. I remember watching it in Australia when I was young, and I just thought, obviously, I thought the dudes were hot and that it was super cool. And I'm like, I'm going to be a demon on this show one day. That's what I want. Like, that would be so fun. And then I actually was. So for people that watch Supernatural, I'm in the 200th episode, which was this kind of big milestone fan episode. It's called Fan Fiction. And I play Calliope, the Greek goddess demon, who is like the ultimate Supernatural fangirl to the point where she is going to kill to shut down this production of a musical of Supernatural that she doesn't think is accurate. So
wow.
Very hardcore fangirling there, but super fun. And the whole team on that show are just a total dream to work with.
Oh, for sure.
You're working together that long, you've got to be. But I was very impressed with just how friendly and wonderful everyone is.
No, for sure. And We'll wrap up soon, but I wanted to also mention you just came back from a convention. I wanted to know if you can kind of tell us about that convention specifically, because I saw Tamsin McDonough, our mutual friend, she was at that convention as well. Talk a little bit about that convention, and I also want your thoughts about conventions and what you're kind of noticing as kind of one of these storytellers and guests at these conventions. Are you noticing anything, any trends when it comes to it? Is anything changing? Talk a little bit about that. So what convention were you at, and what do you think about conventions?
So I don't have a lot of experience with conventions, but it's something that I'm definitely becoming a bit more familiar with. So I was listed to go to Universal FanCon, which was unfortunately canceled very last minute. And as a way of supporting all the fans also the team that had worked so hard to put this convention on in the first place, so hundreds of volunteers, putting a lot of hard work into that. And so when it fell apart, myself and other cast from The Magicians and a show on Sci-Fi called Killjoys, we felt that we should honor the fans that had bought tickets and bought flights to Baltimore, which is where it was being held, and still go and show up and do what we said we were going to do. So we did, and essentially what convention was put on in place of Universal FanCon was called White Comic Con. And it's been all over Twitter and in the media as well, which was really cool. And it was basically a pop-up convention held on the Saturday in Baltimore where Magicians and Killjoys cast appeared, and just, we did a couple of panels. We did a really cool panel. You talk about the role, how I see conventions changing.
Yep.
Well, there was a panel that we contributed to called Women of Sci-Fi. So that was really focusing on the role of women in our industry. And sorry, not our industry, in that genre.
Yep.
And then also there was a lot of focus on diversity in that world as well, in the sci-fi comic book world. So there were a lot of, I guess, more of a political stance taken at the convention than I was expecting, but I loved that. I thought that was a super cool thing to see. And, with Black Panther being released, there's definitely been a light shone on, I think Black Panther and Wonder Woman have really shone a spotlight on some minorities that we really want to see more properly focused on in that genre. So it was really cool to be a part of that convention where we were essentially just going to support our fans. Mm-hmm. I think all of us took a lot out of it on a deeper level because of all the other conversations that were happening there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I just wanted to say that just congrats, because it just seems like there's so much success, and I feel like it's just kind of the beginning. I feel like it's going to get bigger and better. So you laugh, but it's true. So congrats on that.
Well, thank you, Peter. It's certainly really cool. Like, I'm very happy to be getting to work with just the people that I'm working with. Siren is a fantastic cast. Magicians are all incredible. And I have to say, Jay Taylor, Brittany Curran, Sergio Suna, and I, who were all there on the weekend, they're very dedicated to the fan base on that show. And I just think they lead that show with just mad respect to them, the way they're leaders on that show.
Oh, absolutely. But now it's time for you to plug away. Where can people follow you on social media? What when the shows that you're on? You mentioned them when you introduced them, but like what should they be looking out for? Plug away. The floor is yours.
Okay, plug away, he says. Basically, so definitely there's 3 episodes to go on Siren right now, though you can catch everything on Hulu and the Freeform app, Freeform Go, I think it's called. Yep. So basically, we're on Thursday nights, 8 p.m., 7 Central on Freeform. Colony, I'm in this Wednesday night, 10 on USA, 10 p.m., which is 9 p.m. Central, so please tune in for that. And you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Hannah Levien, my last name, Levien, and on Instagram and Facebook at Hannah Levien Official, since I couldn't get my own name on those things.
Perfect. Well, seriously, thank you so much for coming on the show, Hannah, and we wish you all the best in the future.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Peter. It's my pleasure, and thank you for watching the shows.
No, absolutely. Well, this has been Pop Turnative. You can catch previous episodes, Pop Turnative, youtube.com for the video episodes. For the audio only, you can go on Spotify, iTunes, Libsyn, Podbean. We're everywhere. Be sure to follow Hannah on social media and watch the shows that she mentioned, and popturnative.com for more content. Till next time, this is Hannah Levien and PD Beats signing off.
Woohoo! Bye!
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.